The first thing you learn as a military interrogator is that people tell you everything you need to know. They just don't realize they're doing it. The second thing you learn is patience. Good intelligence takes time to develop, like a photograph in a dark room. You wait, you watch, and eventually, the image becomes crystal clear. My name is Jason Fairburn, and I've been watching my wife Laura for 3 months now. Not because I'm some paranoid psychopath, but because she's been acting like someone with secrets. Big ones. It started with the phone calls. Laura's always been ambitious. She's a partner at Staples & Associates, one of the better law firms in our corner of Texas. But suddenly, she was taking calls at midnight, whispering in the bathroom, keeping her phone face down during dinner. When I'd ask who called, she'd wave me off with some bullshit about difficult clients and case strategy. Then came the late nights. 2-3 times a week, Laura would announce she was meeting her friend Diana for drinks, or attending some bar association event, or working late on depositions. She'd come home smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't mine, with her lipstick gone and her hair slightly messed. The final straw was last Tuesday. I found a receipt in her purse while looking for gum, Hotel Grandview, presidential suite, charged to her personal credit card. When I asked about it, she claimed it was for a client meeting that required the presidential suite at the most expensive hotel in the city. That's when my old training kicked in. You don't confront a subject until you have overwhelming evidence. You gather intelligence first, then you strike. I started small. I noted when she left, when she returned, what she wore, how she acted. I checked our cell phone bill and found dozens of calls to a number I didn't recognize. I installed a GPS tracker on her Mercedes, perfectly legal since both our names are on the title. The number belonged to Scott Williams. I knew Scott from church functions and charity events. He's 43, married to a sweet woman named Karen, father of 2 kids. He sits on the board of Cornerstone Baptist Church, where he's known for his generous donations and his passionate speeches about traditional family values. He owns 3 car dealerships and lives in a mansion on the north side of town. Scott Williams was sleeping with my wife. I could have confronted them immediately, but that would have been amateur hour. Instead, I did what I do best. I gathered evidence. I'm a licensed private investigator now, have been since I left the Army 5 years ago. I know how to document infidelity, and I know how to do it legally. Texas is a one-party consent state, which means I can record conversations as long as I'm part of them. I can also legally track vehicles I co-own and investigate activities in public spaces. Most importantly, I know how to be patient. Last Friday night, Laura announced another girls' night with Diana. I followed her to the Hotel Grandview, where she met Scott in the lobby bar. They had 2 drinks, then took the elevator to the 6th floor. I waited in my truck for 3 hours until they came down separately. Laura first, then Scott, 20 minutes later. I had photos of them entering together, timestamps from the hotel security cameras I could subpoena later, and credit card records showing Laura had paid for the room. But I needed more. I needed a confession. That's where my interrogation training became invaluable. The key to getting someone to confess isn't torture or trickery. It's making them feel safe enough to tell the truth. You create an environment where confession feels like the logical choice. So I decided to give Laura exactly what she thought she wanted. Sunday morning, Cornerstone Baptist Church. Laura and I sat in our usual pew, 3rd row from the front, while Pastor Dwight delivered a sermon about the sanctity of marriage. The irony was so thick, you could cut it with a communion wafer. Scott Williams sat 2 rows ahead with his wife Karen and their kids. He kept glancing back at Laura, little stolen looks that he thought were subtle. They weren't. I cataloged every glance, every smile, every moment of eye contact. After service, we mingled in the fellowship hall like we had for the past 8 years. Laura chatted with the other lawyers' wives, discussing charity fundraisers and book clubs. Scott worked the room like the politician he'd probably become someday, shaking hands and talking business. Jason! Scott's voice boomed across the room. He approached with that practiced smile, the one he used on customers and campaign donors. How's the private investigation business? Busy, I said, shaking his hand. Amazing how many people think they can keep secrets in a town this size. His smile flickered for just a moment. I imagine that's true. You'd be surprised what people confess when they think nobody's listening, I continued, watching his face. Sometimes they practically hand you the evidence. Scott's laugh sounded forced. Well, I'm glad my life is boring enough to stay off your radar. Oh, Scott, I smiled. You'd be amazed what's on my radar these days. Laura appeared at my elbow, sliding her arm through mine with practiced ease. What are you boys talking about? Just discussing Jason's work, Scott said, his voice a little too casual. Fascinating stuff. Laura murmured, but I caught the look she exchanged with Scott. It lasted maybe 2 seconds, but it was loaded with meaning. Be careful. He might know something. That afternoon, while Laura napped, I made my preparations. I'd already installed voice-activated recording devices in her car and her home office, both spaces where she felt safe enough to make private calls. Now I needed to create the right circumstances for a confession. I called Diana Carter, Laura's actual best friend, and the woman whose identity Laura had been borrowing for her cover stories. Diana's an orthodontist, sharp as a scalpel, and she'd been suspicious of Laura's recent behavior, too. Jason? Diana sounded surprised. Is everything okay? I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Have you been meeting Laura for drinks lately? Girls' nights out? Long pause. Jason, I haven't seen Laura outside of church functions in over a month. She canceled our last 3 dinner plans. That's what I thought. Diana, I think Laura is having an affair. Another pause, longer this time. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. What can I do? I need you to call her tonight. Invite her for drinks at O'Malley's. When she inevitably cancels or makes an excuse, act hurt. Make her feel guilty. Then tomorrow, I want you to confront her directly about the lies. You want me to push her into confessing? I want you to make her defensive. Defensive people make mistakes. Diana agreed to help. She understood that Laura had been using her as an alibi, and she was pissed about it. Monday evening, right on schedule, Diana called. I was in the kitchen making dinner when Laura answered. Hey girl, what's up? Laura's voice was bright, fake cheerful. I couldn't hear Diana's side, but I could guess. The invitation, the request to meet up. Oh, Diana, I'm so sorry, Laura said, her voice shifting to apologetic. I've got this huge case, and I'm drowning in depositions. Rain check? More talking from Diana's end. I know. I've been terrible about staying in touch. It's just work, you know? This partnership track is killing me. I smiled as I stirred the pasta sauce. Laura had made partner 3 years ago. Tuesday afternoon, Diana called again. This time I was ready with my recorder. Laura, we need to talk. Diana's voice was cold. I'd coached her well. I know you've been lying to me. What? Diana, what are you talking about? You've been telling people you're out with me when you're not. Sarah Morrison asked me how our book club was going, the one you told her we started. We don't have a book club, Laura. Silence on Laura's end. And last week, when you supposedly had dinner with me, I was in Dallas visiting my sister. So where were you really? Diana, I can explain. I don't want explanations. I want the truth. Are you having an affair? The question hung in the air like smoke. I held my breath, waiting. That's ridiculous. Why would you even ask that? Because you're acting like someone with something to hide. The secret phone calls, the lies about where you've been, using me as your alibi. What else am I supposed to think? You're being paranoid. Am I? Then tell me where you were last Friday night when you were supposedly with me. Another long pause. Then, I was working. Until midnight? On a Friday? Yes. Laura, I drove by your office. Your car wasn't there. I could practically hear Laura's mind racing, trying to come up with another lie. I was at the courthouse. Research. The courthouse is closed on Friday nights. Diana, I don't appreciate being interrogated by my best friend. And I don't appreciate being lied to. Look, if you're having problems with Jason, if you need someone to talk to, I'm here, but stop using me as your cover story. The call ended. Laura sat in her car for 10 minutes afterward, and I knew she was panicking. The walls were closing in and she could feel it. That night, she was jumpy, distracted. She kept checking her phone, and twice I caught her staring at me like she was trying to read my thoughts. Everything okay? I asked over dinner. Fine. Just tired. Diana called earlier. She mentioned you two haven't been getting together lately. Laura's fork paused halfway to her mouth. We've both been busy. She seemed to think you'd been avoiding her. That's not true. She said something about you using her name for something. I didn't really understand what she meant. Laura's face went pale. I have no idea what she's talking about. I nodded and went back to my dinner, but I could see the fear in her eyes now. She knew I was getting close to the truth. Wednesday night, I made my move. Laura was in her home office, door closed, when I knocked. Come in, she called. She was at her desk, laptop open, pretending to work on legal briefs, but I could see the reflection in her reading glasses. She'd been looking at her phone. Hey, I said, settling into the chair across from her desk. Can we talk? Sure. What's up? I've been thinking about us lately, about our marriage. Her hands stilled on the keyboard. Okay. We've been together for 12 years, married for 8. That's a long time. It is. I feel like we've been drifting apart lately. You're always working, always busy. I miss spending time with you. Laura's expression softened slightly. She thought this was going to be one of those relationship talks, the kind where I'd ask her to prioritize our marriage over her career. I know I've been distracted, she said. The firm has been demanding. I understand that. I really do. But I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Of course. Are you happy? In our marriage, I mean. She hesitated. That's a complicated question. How so? Marriage is complicated, Jason. It's not always about being happy. But are you happy? Another pause. I don't know. Sometimes. What would make you happier? I don't know that either. I leaned forward. Laura, if you wanted out of this marriage, if you wanted to be with someone else, you could just tell me. I'm not going to fall apart. Her eyes widened slightly. Why are you asking me that? Because I get the feeling you're not telling me something important. Like what? Like maybe you've already found someone else. The silence stretched between us like a tightrope. Laura's face went through several expressions: surprise, fear, calculation, defiance. What exactly are you accusing me of? I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm asking. You think I'm having an affair. Are you? She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her making a decision. Maybe she was tired of lying. Maybe she thought honesty would give her the upper hand. Maybe she just wanted the charade to end. Yes, she said quietly. I nodded like she'd just told me about the weather. How long? 4 months. Do I know him? Yes. Is it Scott Williams? Her face went white. How did you... Lucky guess. He's been acting strange around me lately. Laura straightened in her chair, and I could see her shifting into lawyer mode. Jason, I want you to know that this isn't about you. You're a good man, a good husband. This is about me, about what I need. And what do you need? I need someone who understands my ambitions, someone who can match my energy, my drive. And Scott does that? Yes. Even though he's married with kids? His marriage has been over for years. He's only staying for the children. I almost laughed. That was the oldest line in the cheater's handbook. So what happens now? I asked. I don't know. I need time to figure things out. Do you love him? I think so. Yes. More than you love me? Jason, please don't make this harder than it has to be. I'm just trying to understand. You've been lying to me for months, using Diana as your alibi, sneaking around behind my back. I think I deserve to understand why. You do deserve that. And I'm sorry for the lying. I should have been honest from the beginning. Why weren't you? Because I was scared. I didn't want to hurt you. But you did it anyway. Yes, I did it anyway. I stood up slowly. Laura, I need to ask you one more question, and I need you to be completely honest. Okay. If I told you that you had to choose right now, today, between me and Scott, what would you choose? She looked me straight in the eye. I'd choose Scott. Even knowing it would destroy his family, his kids, that's not my responsibility. Even knowing it would end our marriage? Yes. Even knowing that Scott has been funding your affair with money he's been embezzling from church donations? Laura's face went blank. What? The hotel rooms, the dinners, the gifts. Scott's been paying for everything through fake charity receipts. He's been writing off your affair as tax-deductible religious donations. That's not. He wouldn't. I have the records, Laura. Bank statements, credit card receipts, notarized donation forms with backdated stamps. Scott's been stealing from the church to pay for hotel rooms. You're lying. I'm really not. And here's the thing about tax fraud. It's a federal crime. When the IRS gets involved, they freeze all assets pending investigation. Joint bank accounts, investment portfolios, real estate holdings, everything. Laura stood up so fast, her chair rolled backward. You can't prove any of this. Actually, I can. I've been documenting everything for months. Every hotel receipt, every dinner, every lie you've told. I know about the burner phone Scott bought you. I know about the apartment he's been looking at for you two. I know everything. You've been spying on me? I've been investigating my wife's suspicious behavior. There's a difference. This is insane. You're insane. Laura, sit down. We're not done talking. Yes, we are. She moved toward the door, but I stepped in front of her. Actually, we're not. See, I have one more question for you. Get out of my way. You said you'd choose Scott over me. You said you don't care about destroying his family. You said you love him more than you love me. Is that really how you feel? Yes, I slept with him. What are you going to do about it? She snorted when she said it, like the whole thing was amusing to her. Like I was some pathetic husband who'd just roll over and accept being cuckolded. I smiled and said, "Thank you for making this easy." Her face went pale after I handed her the divorce papers I'd had prepared earlier and played the recording of her confession. What the hell is this? Divorce papers. I had them drawn up last week. You recorded me? That's illegal. Texas is a one-party consent state. As long as I'm part of the conversation, I can record it legally. This recording, along with all the other evidence I've gathered, will be submitted to the court. Laura sank back into her chair, staring at the papers. But here's the really interesting part, I continued. Scott doesn't know I know about the tax fraud yet. He thinks he's been clever, hiding the money trail through church donations. But I've been in contact with the IRS fraud division. You didn't. I did. They're very interested in Scott's creative accounting. Turns out, using religious donations to fund an extramarital affair is exactly the kind of thing that gets you a federal investigation. Jason, please. Oh, I'm not done. See, I also sent copies of all the evidence to Pastor Dwight, the church board, and Scott's wife, Karen. I imagine Karen is having a very interesting conversation with Scott right about now. Laura's phone buzzed. She looked at it and went even paler. Scott? I asked. She nodded. He's probably calling to tell you that his wife just served him with divorce papers too, and that the church board has scheduled an emergency meeting for tomorrow night, and that the IRS just froze his business accounts. You destroyed him. No, Laura, you destroyed him. I just documented it. The next morning, I was at my office when Diana called. Jason, what the hell did you do? Laura called me at 6 a.m. crying hysterically. I told her I knew about the affair. And she confessed. Everything. It's over, Diana. Thank God. I was starting to think you'd never figure it out. You knew? I suspected. Laura's not as smart as she thinks she is. But Jason, she's telling people you threatened her, that you're trying to frame Scott Williams for something he didn't do. Scott Williams has been embezzling from the church to pay for their affair. That's not a frame job, that's just facts. How do you know? Because I've been tracking their financial activity for 2 months. Every hotel room, every dinner, every gift, all paid for with money Scott diverted from church accounts through fake donation receipts. Jesus. The IRS is already investigating. By the end of the week, both Laura and Scott are going to wish they'd never met. That afternoon, Pastor Dwight called me. Jason, I think we need to talk. About what, Pastor? About the allegations you've made against Scott Williams. I haven't made any allegations. I've simply provided documentation of financial irregularities to the appropriate authorities. The church board would like to meet with you. I'll be there. The emergency board meeting was held that evening in the church conference room. 7 board members, Pastor Dwight and me. Scott was notably absent. Jason, Pastor Dwight began, we've reviewed the materials you provided. They're quite disturbing. I imagine they are. Can you walk us through what you discovered? I opened my folder and spread the documents across the table. Bank statements, credit card receipts, hotel records, phone logs, and photographs. 4 months ago, my wife Laura began an affair with Scott Williams. To fund this affair, Scott began creating false donation receipts, claiming charitable contributions that were actually payments for hotel rooms, dinners, and gifts for Laura. I pointed to the bank statements. Here, you can see deposits to the church account, followed by immediate withdrawals to Scott's personal account. The amounts match exactly with these hotel and restaurant receipts. Board member Tom Henderson picked up one of the receipts. Hotel Grandview, Presidential Suite, $400 a night. Paid for with church money, I confirmed. Scott would write a check to the church for, say, $500, claiming it was a charitable donation. Then he'd immediately withdraw $400 from the church account to pay for the hotel room. The extra $100 stayed in the church account to make it look legitimate. This is embezzlement, said board member Sarah Chen. Yes, it is. It's also tax fraud, since Scott claimed these fake donations as deductions on his personal tax returns. Pastor Dwight looked sick. How much money are we talking about? Over the past 4 months, approximately $15,000. The room went silent. Where is Scott now? Asked Henderson. I believe he's meeting with his attorney. His wife filed for divorce yesterday, and the IRS has frozen his business accounts pending investigation. And your wife? Also meeting with her attorney. Our divorce should be finalized within 60 days. Sarah Chen leaned forward. Jason, I have to ask, why didn't you come to us first? Why go straight to the authorities? Because Scott Williams has been a pillar of this church for 15 years. He's donated hundreds of thousands of dollars, served on multiple committees, and built a reputation as a family man and community leader. If I'd come to you with accusations, would you have believed me? Or would you have believed him? The uncomfortable silence told me everything I needed to know. By going to the IRS first, I ensured that the investigation would be conducted by people with no personal relationship to Scott. The evidence speaks for itself. Pastor Dwight cleared his throat. The board has already voted. Scott Williams is being removed from all church positions, effective immediately. We're also considering whether to pursue criminal charges beyond what the federal authorities are already doing. That's your decision to make. Jason, I want you to know that the church will support you through this difficult time. If you need counseling, financial assistance, anything. I appreciate that, Pastor, but I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. And I was. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. Friday morning, I was having coffee at my kitchen table when Laura walked in. She looked terrible, red eyes, rumpled clothes, like she hadn't slept in days. "We need to talk," she said. "I thought we said everything we needed to say." "Jason, please. I know you're angry, but what you've done to Scott is cruel and vindictive." "What I've done to Scott?" "Laura, I didn't make Scott steal from the church. I didn't make him commit tax fraud. I just documented what he was already doing." "You know what I mean." "No, I really don't. Explain it to me." She sat down across from me, and for a moment she looked like the woman I'd married 8 years ago. Young, vulnerable, uncertain. "Scott's life is ruined. His wife left him, his kids won't speak to him, the church has excommunicated him, and his business is under federal investigation. All because of you. All because of his own choices. You could have handled this differently." "How?" "You could have come to me first. We could have worked something out." "Like what?" "Like a quiet divorce, a clean separation. No one had to get hurt." I stared at her for a long moment. "Laura, you were stealing from a church to fund your affair. You were lying to your best friend, your family, your husband. You were helping Scott commit federal crimes, and you think the problem is that I documented it? I didn't know about the church money." "Yes, you did. You saw the donation receipts. You knew Scott didn't have that kind of disposable income. You knew something was wrong and you didn't care because you were getting what you wanted." "That's not true." "It is true. And you know what? Even if it wasn't true, it wouldn't matter. You made your choice when you decided to sleep with a married man. You made your choice when you decided to lie to me for 4 months. You made your choice when you told me you'd pick him over me." I was angry when I said that. "No, Laura. You were honest. For the first time in months, you were completely honest. And I appreciated that honesty so much that I decided to be honest too. By destroying both our lives? By telling the truth. That's all I did. I told the truth to the IRS, to the church board, to Scott's wife, and to the court. If the truth destroyed your life, maybe you should have made better choices." Laura started crying then, big, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. "Jason, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know I hurt you. I know I made terrible mistakes, but please, can't we find a way to fix this?" "No." "Why not?" "Because you're not sorry you did it. You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference." "That's not true." "Laura, if I hadn't found out about the affair, would you have ended it?" She didn't answer. "If Scott hadn't been caught stealing from the church, would you still be planning to leave me for him?" Still no answer. "If the IRS hadn't frozen his accounts, if his wife hadn't filed for divorce, if the church board hadn't excommunicated him, would you still be choosing him over me?" "I don't know." "Yes, you do. And so do I." I stood up and walked to the kitchen window, looking out at the backyard where we'd planned to build a deck someday, maybe put in a pool when we had kids. "Laura, I want you to understand something. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about punishment. This is about consequences. You and Scott made choices, and now you're living with the results of those choices. But the consequences are so severe. The consequences are proportional to the crimes. Embezzlement is a felony. Tax fraud is a felony. Adultery might not be illegal, but it's grounds for divorce in every state in the country. What about forgiveness? What about second chances? Forgiveness doesn't mean pretending something didn't happen, and second chances have to be earned. How? Tell me how to earn a second chance, and I'll do it." I turned back to face her. "You can't. It's too late." "Why?" "Because I don't love you anymore." The words hung in the air between us like a death sentence. "You don't mean that." "I do mean it. Laura, for 4 months, I watched you lie to my face every single day. I watched you use our friends as alibis for your affair. I watched you steal money and commit crimes and betray every promise you ever made to me. And the whole time, you acted like I was the problem, like I was the one who wasn't good enough. I never said that. You didn't have to say it. You showed it. Every time you chose to be with him instead of me. Every time you lied about where you were. Every time you came home smelling like his cologne and pretended nothing had happened. I was trying to protect you. No, you were trying to protect yourself. And you know what? I don't blame you for that. Self-preservation is a natural instinct, but don't pretend you were doing it for my benefit. Laura wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. So that's it? 8 years of marriage, and you're just throwing it all away? I'm not throwing anything away. You already threw it away. I'm just acknowledging that it's gone. And Scott? What happens to him? Scott will face the consequences of his actions just like you will. The IRS investigation could send him to prison. That's possible. You're okay with that? Laura, I'm not the one who decided Scott should commit federal crimes to fund your affair. That was his choice. If he goes to prison, it's because he broke the law, not because I reported it. But you didn't have to report it. Yes, I did. I'm a licensed private investigator. When I discover evidence of criminal activity, I'm legally obligated to report it to the appropriate authorities. If I hadn't reported Scott's embezzlement, I could lose my license and face charges myself. You're hiding behind the law. I'm following the law. There's a difference. Laura stood up slowly, like she was carrying a great weight. I guess there's nothing left to say. I guess not. When do you want me out of the house? You can take as much time as you need to find a place. I'll be staying at a hotel until the divorce is final. That's generous of you. It's practical. I don't want to live with someone who betrayed me, and you don't want to live with someone who destroyed your boyfriend's life. This way, we both get what we want. Laura walked toward the door, then stopped. Jason? Yeah? For what it's worth, you're right. About everything. I made terrible choices and I hurt you, and I'm sorry. I believe you. But you still don't forgive me. Forgiveness and reconciliation are two different things. I forgive you for being human, for making mistakes, for being weak when you should have been strong. But I can't reconcile with someone I don't trust, and I'll never trust you again. Never? Never. She nodded and walked out of the kitchen. I heard the front door close, then her car starting in the driveway. I poured myself another cup of coffee and sat back down at the kitchen table, surrounded by the silence of my empty house. For the first time in months, it felt like peace. 6 weeks later, I was in my office when my lawyer called. Jason, it's done. The divorce is final. How did it go? Better than expected. Laura didn't contest anything. She signed over her share of the house, accepted the alimony terms, and agreed to the asset division we proposed. What about her lawyer? Claire Barnett tried to argue for a bigger settlement, but when we presented the evidence of Laura's affair and Scott's embezzlement, she advised her client to take the deal. And Scott? Federal charges were filed yesterday: embezzlement, tax fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy. He's looking at 5 to 7 years if convicted. His wife? Karen Williams filed for divorce 2 weeks ago. She's seeking full custody of the kids and half of everything Scott owns, which after the IRS gets done with him won't be much. What about the church? They're cooperating fully with the federal investigation. Pastor Dwight has been very helpful in documenting the financial irregularities. I thanked my lawyer and hung up, then sat back in my chair and looked around my office. It was small, cramped, and cluttered with case files and surveillance equipment. But it was mine, and it represented something I'd built with my own hands. My phone buzzed. Text message from Diana. Heard about the divorce. How are you holding up? I typed back, good, really good. Want to grab dinner tonight? I promise not to ask about Laura. That would be nice. Diana and I had been spending more time together since the divorce proceedings began. She was smart, funny, and honest, everything Laura had pretended to be. We weren't dating, not officially, but there was something there, something real. That afternoon, I drove past Scott's car dealership. There was a for sale sign in the window, and a notice from the federal marshal's office posted on the door. Scott's empire, built over 20 years, was being liquidated to pay his legal fees and the restitution he owed to the church. I didn't feel sorry for him. That evening, Diana and I had dinner at a little Italian place downtown. She looked beautiful in a simple black dress, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. "You look happy," she said over wine. "I am happy." "That's good. You deserve to be happy." "So do you." "I am. Happier than I've been in a long time." We talked about everything except Laura and Scott. Diana's work, my cases, books we'd read, movies we wanted to see. Normal conversation between two people who genuinely liked each other. After dinner, we walked through downtown, past the courthouse where my divorce had been finalized that morning, past the church where Scott had stolen $15,000 to fund his affair, past the hotel where Laura had betrayed 8 years of marriage. "Do you ever regret it?" Diana asked as we reached her car. "Regret what?" "Exposing them, destroying their lives." "No." "Not even a little?" "Diana, they destroyed their own lives. I just made sure there were consequences. But such severe consequences. Proportional consequences. Laura committed adultery and helped Scott commit federal crimes. Scott embezzled money from a church and committed tax fraud. They're both facing the natural results of their actions." "You sound like a judge." "I was a judge. For 4 months I investigated, gathered evidence, and rendered a verdict. Laura and Scott were found guilty of betraying everyone who trusted them." "And their sentence?" "Public humiliation, financial ruin, and social exile. No prison time for Laura, probably 5 years for Scott. Could have been worse." "Could it have been better?" "Not without rewarding criminal behavior." Diana smiled. "You're a hard man, Jason Fairburn." "I'm a fair man. There's a difference. Is there room in your life for someone who believes in second chances?" "Depends on whether they've earned them." "And how does someone earn a second chance?" "By accepting responsibility for their actions, making amends to the people they've hurt, and proving through their behavior that they've changed." "That's a high standard." "It should be. Second chances are valuable. They shouldn't be given away lightly." Diana stepped closer to me, and I could smell her perfume. Light, floral, honest. "What if someone hasn't betrayed you? What if they're just asking for a first chance?" "That's different. First chances are free. Everyone gets one." "Everyone?" "Everyone who's honest enough to ask." She kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of promise. When we broke apart, she was smiling. "I'm asking." "Asking for what?" "A first chance." I kissed her back, tasting wine and possibility. "Granted." 3 months later, I was in my office when the phone rang. "Fairburn Investigations." "Jason, it's Karen Williams, Scott's ex-wife." I hadn't spoken to her since the divorce proceedings. "Karen, how are you?" "I'm good. Really good, actually. The divorce was finalized last week." "I heard. How are the kids handling it?" "Better than expected. They're angry at their father, but they understand why I had to leave him." "That's good. Jason, I called because I wanted to thank you." "For what?" "For telling the truth, for having the courage to expose what Scott was doing." "You don't need to thank me for that." "Yes, I do. I suspected something was wrong for months, but I was too scared to investigate. I was afraid of what I might find." "Fear is natural. But you weren't afraid. You found out the truth and you acted on it, even though you knew it would be painful." "It was the right thing to do." "It was. And because of what you did, I'm free. My kids are free. We don't have to live with a liar and a criminal anymore." "I'm glad you're doing well." "We are. I got a job at the school district, and we're renting a little house on the south side. It's not much, but it's honest. That's what matters." "Jason?" "Yeah?" "I hope you find happiness. You deserve it. I'm working on it. After I hung up, I sat back in my chair and thought about the past 6 months. Laura was working as a contract attorney for a small firm, making a third of what she'd made at Staples and Associates. Her reputation in the legal community was ruined, and she'd never make partner anywhere again. Scott was in federal prison, serving a 6-year sentence for embezzlement and tax fraud. His car dealerships had been sold to pay restitution, his mansion was in foreclosure, and his children refused to visit him. Pastor Dwight had used the scandal as an opportunity to implement new financial oversight procedures at the church. The congregation had rallied around the institution, and donations were actually higher than they'd been before Scott's crimes were exposed. Diana and I were officially dating now. She was kind, intelligent, and trustworthy, everything I'd thought Laura was, but real this time. We were taking things slowly, building a foundation of friendship and mutual respect. My private investigation business was thriving. Word had gotten out about how I'd handled the Williams case, and I was getting calls from all over Texas. Apparently, there was a market for investigators who were thorough, discreet, and absolutely relentless in pursuing the truth. I was happy, genuinely, completely happy for the first time in years. My phone rang again. Fairburn Investigations. Mr. Fairburn, my name is Margaret Thompson. I think my husband is having an affair and I need someone to find out for sure. I can help you with that, Mrs. Thompson. When would you like to meet? As I scheduled the appointment, I thought about Laura's question from months ago. What are you going to do about it? I'd answered that question thoroughly. I'd documented the truth, exposed the lies, and ensured that actions had consequences. I'd protected myself, helped innocent people like Karen Williams and Diana, and sent a clear message that betrayal comes with a price. Laura and Scott had learned that lesson the hard way. They'd gambled with other people's lives and lost everything. I'd won, not because I was vindictive or cruel, but because I was prepared, because I was patient, because I was willing to do what was necessary to protect myself and the people I cared about. Because when someone asks you, "What are you going to do about it?" with a snort and a smirk, sometimes the best answer is to show them exactly what you're capable of. The truth had set me free. It had destroyed my enemies and elevated my friends. It had given me a new life, a new love, and a new purpose. And it had taught me the most important lesson of all. When people show you who they really are, believe them. And when they challenge you to do something about their betrayal, make sure you're ready to accept that challenge completely. Laura had asked what I was going to do about her affair. I'd shown her, and I'd made sure she'd never forget the answer.